dad who had just returned from dropping his son off was brutally stabbed to death after he refused to hand over his car keys, a court has heard. His hooded killers were said to have placed a tracking device on his Mercedes ML250, and Albert Amofa, 33, was ambushed as soon as he parked his car on Drake Road in Croydon. He was knifed 5 times, the court was told, in the thigh shortly after 9 p.m. on December the 15th, 2020, and died 2 days later in St George's Hospital in Tooting due to multiple organ failure. Donald Owusu, 25, and Harvey McFoy, 26, have been charged with his murder, whilst a third man, Theo Brown, 32, is accused of perverting the course of justice by helping his killers dispose of a vehicle. Jurors at the Old Bailey heard that his murder was a carefully planned attack with the intention of abducting Amofa and his female companion, Ria Goodcar. The family man did not know his attackers, who were under the belief he had picked up a valuable consignment of drugs in his car, when in reality he had been dropping his son off at his mum's house. At 9:15 p.m, the victim and his friend parked the Mercedes outside Amofa's property and were immediately set upon by 3 hooded assailants wearing balaclavas. Whilst Amofa was still seated in the front seat of the car, the men opened the doors and leant over him with a knife, allegedly shouting, "Where are the keys? Where are the effing keys?" Whilst Miss Goodcar was pushed into the back of the car, Amofa refused to hand over his keys and was stabbed 5 times in his left thigh, the most serious of which penetrated his femoral vein. The 3 men fled the scene and paramedics arrived 15 minutes later, by which point Amofa had collapsed in the road with significant bleeding. He was rushed to hospital, but despite the best efforts of paramedics, he passed away on December the 17th, due to blood loss complicated by sickle cell anemia, leading to multiple organ failure. A murder investigation was launched, and McFoy and Owusu were arrested and charged, while the third attacker remains unidentified. The court heard that in the aftermath of the incident, McFoy employed the assistance of Theo Brown to help dispose of a Peugeot 3008 that was used in the attack. On Christmas Eve, Brown took the car to Nottingham under the guise of a false number plate, and it was left in a residential street where it was eventually found by police on January the 7th. John Price, prosecuting, said, "The tracking hardware had been removed from where it had been installed from behind ignition. The evidence showed that technical knowledge will have required to perform that task, and it must have happened after the vehicle arrived in Norfolk and before it set for Nottingham. It is submitted by the prosecution that it could only have been Theo Brown who removed it, where it had been installed and disposed of. DNA evidence from inside the Peugeot showed a 1 in a billion match for Amofa's profile, and Owusu's DNA was found on the tracking device placed on his car." Mr. Price told the jurors that there was no evidence to suggest that there was any personal malice between Amofa and his killers, and that their motive was to obtain drugs. He said the attack that night on Albert Amofa and Ria Goodcar was not a spontaneous event. It was very obviously carefully planned. No evidence has been found to show that Mr. Amofa and Miss Ria Goodcar knew either McFoy or Owusu. What happened in the car points to a plan to abduct them both and take them away from Drake Road. What might have been the reason if carried out by people they do not know? Evidence exists that shows in the lead up to December the 15th, Mr. Amofa and Ria Goodcar had been involved in dealing drugs, a notoriously dangerous trade, and were advertising that on social media. On December the 13th, 2 days before the murder, Miss Goodcar is said to have travelled to Wimbledon to collect a quantity of cannabis, which she then allegedly delivered to Amofa's address. Meanwhile, the killers had placed a tracking device on the Mercedes the previous day and were carefully watching their movements. The prosecution stated their belief that the trio thought Amofa and Miss Goodcar were travelling to collect a quantity of drugs on that fateful day when he were only dropping his young son at his mum's house. The prosecution invite you to consider that this was murder caused in the attempt of a violent abduction, most likely undertaken for gain, Mr. Price concluded. McFly of Bromley and Owusu of Upper Norwood both deny murder, whilst Brown of Wallington denies perverting the court of justice. McFoy has admitted perverting the course of justice between December the 16th and the 25th, 2019, by organising the disposal of the Peugeot. The trial continues. Once again, thank you for watching, Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe to enable this channel to continue running. You can also find even more stories on social media platforms and the website. Links will be in the description below. This video was brought to you by Fresh Media 365 News.